Okay, now, job description. Um, you've got all the pieces here, so put together the job description. Um, things like tasks and responsibilities, level of experience, again, specific skills, training, education, and so forth. Notice that all of these first few bullet items are something that are pretty much addressed by your task analysis. As I said, distinguish between the must-haves and the nice-to-haves, and then add things like hours, dress code, start date, career path, and so forth. Now let me talk about career path a little bit here. The person is going to want to progress, right? Now you have an immediate need typically. That's why you've got a hiring requisition. You need somebody to do job X. So it can be very tempting to lose track of this issue of where are they going. But you got to think about it, because for one thing, if you hire somebody and you haven't talked about it, the candidate doesn't talk about it, then this is the beginning of them being unhappy at some point down the line. So think about this, talk about it with the candidates. What are the realistic career paths in the organization? Make sure that you've talked about this with HR. You have an immediate need, as I said, as a manager, but down the road, sooner or later, this tester is going to be moving into other positions, test lead positions, test manager positions, what have you, and you need to make sure that you consider that area. Okay, so now you've got, as the cliche goes, you've got your ducks in a row. So now it's time to actually start getting candidates. Now, so the first part is, of course, gathering up and screening people's resumes. You can get these through classified ads. You can get them off of college job boards if you're looking for entry-level people. Internet. You can talk to your peers. You've got a lot of options available to you here. And of course, there are recruiting companies, and we help clients with staffing too. You can look at contractors, either current or former contractors. So there are a lot of sources. Make sure that if you're going to use a recruiter, you're going to try to convert contractors, make sure that you look at the issues associated with that. So gather up your resumes and then start checking them against the job description. And to the extent that somebody doesn't have the required skills, then you should eliminate them. Do not spend time interviewing people who are not qualified. Now, when you've whittled down that list, at that point, as a manager, you're probably going to want to involve other people in the interview process. You really should. Your company is going to require it, and even if they didn't, you really need to do that. But circulate the resumes of people who look like they're worth talking to other people in the interview process and get their input. And again, if they come back and say, no, this person's not a fit, here's why, then you should eliminate them. Now, this might sound pretty brutal, but interviewing is expensive. In-person interviewing is expensive. Before you bring someone in, you should have no information that says, I'm not going to hire this guy. Because if you've already made that decision, that looking at a man or woman's resume, you've already decided this person is not a fit here, you are not doing anyone, including the candidate, any favors by having an interview that's going nowhere. You're wasting your time, you're wasting their time, you're creating false hope amongst them, you're burning out the people involved in the interviews, so don't do it. Filter people out. Okay, now, those who survive this filtration process now go to a phone interview, and so, you're going to want to do things like confirm skills and so forth, and I'll get into interviewing, both live and phone interviewing here in a minute. But, go check skills, check attitude, and so forth. And again, the whole point of this is sometimes called a phone screen for good reason, because if anything comes up, anything pops up that you now say, I am not going to hire this person, then that's the end of the process, and you should bring the process to a close with that person in a dignified fashion, but one that definitively brings it to a close. Now, I want to point something out. I mean, we're talking a lot about screening, and remember, you have a responsibility as a hiring manager to do this in a way that is ethical and that is legal, right? So if you probably need to talk to your HR folks about what can and cannot be considered, because there are some ways to get yourself into some pretty significant trouble here. So do be careful with this. And finally, check references. Now, a lot of companies will have HR people that do this for you, and that's great, or you can use outsourced firms to kind of mitigate the risks associated with reference check, but you should do a reference check. You want to make sure that, just be blunt about this, I mean, lies abound on resumes. I've seen some real whoppers, and if somebody's lying on their resume in some material way, to me, that's a total disqualifier. You know, you just, somebody who talks themselves into a job based on skills they don't have with the assumption that they're going to soft shoe it through the first few months and you'll pick up the slack, you don't need a person like that working for you. And you know, given how the job market has been lately, you are not that desperate. I mean, there are qualified people out there, so don't settle. Okay, hire someone who you really feel like this is exactly the right person for the job, because they're out there now. Okay, so on that note, warning signs to look for on resumes. Yeah, you know, if somebody's got some sort of buzzword, Agile test leader or something like that, okay, fine. Help me understand what you know about Agile, right? If somebody says they got Mercury experience, or HP now experience, okay, great. Show me where you applied that. Especially the phone interview, but also, you know, if somebody gets to an in-person interview and you feel like there's something that's still not clear, make sure that you clarify that. Degrees, certifications, licenses, and so forth, you might look for those and verify those. Things to watch out for as well, people who change jobs too much. Now, this can be, you have to look at this, right? I mean, the rule used to be that if people were staying on a job for less than 2 years, it was a trouble sign. But, you know, the economy's been so funky lately, and you know, there's been a lot of involuntary separations that happen. So you have to really kind of look at that. Well, why did somebody lose their job? Gaps in employment history, you know, again, this just has to be clarified as to why. I mean, people have been laid off and out of work for a long time, and you owe those people a fair hearing, you know. So I'm not going to say somebody who had the bad luck to get laid off hasn't been able to find a job. You know, people say, oh, well, that's because they really had the skills, they'd have a job. Well, that's not really fair. So much of this stuff has been regional. The downturn, so much of it has been regional, but there have been people that in booming regions, for example, like Sydney, Australia, or Melbourne or something, would be continuously employed. But in San Francisco or Silicon Valley, could be out of work for 18 months. Same set of skills, same guy, same person, you know. So not saying disqualify based on gaps in employment history, but make sure that somebody's got a convincing story to tell about why there is such a gap. And then if there's like this changes of career, that's something to look at. Like, oh, I was an opera singer for 14 years, and now I'm a software tester. Okay, you know, there could be what I refer to rather sarcastically as a Peter Pan problem in these cases, where they don't want to grow up. And, you know, sooner or later you commit, you become a professional, and that implies that you have a career and you stick with it. And you know, you don't want to be some landmark on somebody's personal growth journey.